Welcome to my Hebrew channel. I'm starting chapter 4, last chapter of the book. And this very first verse kind of sets the scene. It's the place where the whole conversation between Boaz and the other Goel, the other Redeemer, as well as elders and other people there at the city gate. The scene takes place at the city gate, and it's very much like a legal proceeding. Things get settled, things are discussed, and decisions are made, and then everybody comes into agreement here to see it through. And so, as we saw in chapter 3, Boaz has met with Ruth on the threshing floor. He's made a decision, and Ruth has put in a petition. I would like you to be the Goel. I'd like you to redeem. I'd like you to restore the name, the property, the inheritance, the family, descendants, and so forth. So all of those things are coming together, and Boaz realizes, yeah, things have to happen, and so he moves right forward. When we have an important decision to make, and when something has to happen, we have to go forward and make it happen. And this is what we see here in this very first verse. It sets a scene for a number of other things happening after this. The whole matter of redeeming becomes very important in the first part of this chapter, and we're going to see the word quite a few times, the word goel. We're going to see it a whole lot, and it sets the definition of what happens to the families here, to Boaz and to Ruth and to Naomi, and to the entire society of the story begins with Boaz, and the other Redeemer moves on to what happens, and then finally, of course, we know it becomes the marriage takes place eventually, and then Obed is born, and then all the other people in the city chime in on what has happened. So some longer verses here. So this one's not too long, but it has a very straightforward structure, so we can get right into it. And using the handwritten manuscript, and in that day and age, they didn't signal at all. They were good enough to give us the scribe had us finish with a siluk right here, no sof pasuk, even dividing what later on became chapters. Verse and chapter divisions are something that came into setting up or defining the scriptures later. But in these early years, it just all went together. You had to kind of remember really where you were, which tells us they didn't do a lot of jumping around and trying to find certain verses and so forth. They just simply opened their scripture and read it right through from front to back, and so there wasn't this kind of jumping from place to place. So we have Hayom, that day, Hadavar Hayom, that he said that day, and then Siluk, and then no Sof Pasuk, starting chapter 4, but it starts right here. Boaz. Now, the last 3 or 4 verses of chapter 3 had a whole conversation of Ruth and Naomi, and then at this point and then Naomi says, "Oh, Boaz is going to take care of this today, so just sit still for a while," telling Ruth to sit still while Boaz defines things. Well, Boaz starts out with Sudik here. Allah went up. This is the base root of, based on the preposition al, which is up, upwards, and then to go upwards is Allah, third person root of going up. And then he went up. Ha-Za'ar, and this is the gate. Za'ar, the gate that's the large city gate, and based on everything that happens, that would have to be the city gate here at Bethlehem. And so it's a place where the judges would sit. It's a place where a lot of commerce took place. Lot was also sitting at the city gate when the angel showed up. That was over in Sodom. But here it's just simply the place of the public place where public decisions are made. Court cases are decided. Important things happen at the city gate. sha'ar, a nice little old sinor, hanging or tying it, or letting it. Sinors, you can think of it, and it's can be either, it can be both. One of them is it's a hook that connects it to the next one, or it's a waterfall that sends us spilling into the next one. So sinor, I like the waterfall one a little better. It runs a little bit more like I think of rafes. Here's a rafe, and where else? You got a rafe over here and rafe over here. I think of rafes as sending us along our way, and I think of the sinor also as sending us on the way. So hazar, then sinor, veyeshev, and then he sat. This is intensive. Seems like a PL. Yeah. Vayeshev, sham, there at the city gate. Vehine, okay, and behold, and there, okay, behold. Two hays right here, and each hay, it's in its archaic form, was a man standing with his hands out like so. Hey, take a good look, okay? And hey, I even use the English word hey, okay, as hey. That's and hine, vehine. Hagoel, the Redeemer, okay? This is then, when you have an OA sound here like this, that's a participle, but it's a participle working as a noun. And so, and the Redeemer, okay, the redeeming one, okay, the one who had to redeem, okay, the Redeemer. And this is referring to the other guy. So at this point, we're going to deal with redeeming, be it on the part of the other man. And we've got a nickname for him at the end here. We'll get to that. But here we're going to look at him as just simply Goed, okay, the Redeemer, the kinsman Redeemer, the guy who was supposed to have rescued the family, but either didn't pay attention to it or didn't even think about it or something. But anyway, he's a Goed. Okay. Hagoel, Over, who is crossing through, walking through. Aver is to cross over, used also for when the Israelites crossed the Jordan, used also when Elisha was crossing the valleys up in the north and so forth. Aver, crossing over, passing through. Over Asher, which Diber, Boaz, which Boaz had said, and Diber is to speak. And this particular one's always, I can't even think of any exceptions now, mostly used for Pia, okay? And so it's an intensified version of to say something. When you want just simply say something like Vayomer, you use Yomer. When you have to speak with a little more stringency, and I always call this my stringing or my screechy verb, Diber, okay? The Hirik Segol is quite normal for Pia. So, and then of which Boaz had spoken, had mentioned, okay, Diber. And Diber is also used for any matter that requires attention. In other words, when you have dabar as a noun, it's something that requires attention or some kind of business. And then when you diber, then that's the verb. That's and then he has mentioned or he's spoken about, or and take it as a bit of an intensive way of saying it. So diber Boaz. Vayomer, okay, nice. Accented milel, milel, and then he said, the man speaking here then is Boaz, okay. Surah, sur is to turn. We also see it in Exodus 3 when Moses is walking past Mount Horeb and he sees a burning bush and he turns. We're going to have a reflexive sense of this verb, and we're going to have a active sense. So the other one on top of the other one here. So Zurah. So this is what Boaz said. Zurah, turn in. Okay? And you'll look up in your apps, and they'll call this thing paragogic hey. In fact, Shuvah, and this one's also here. Same thing. What it does basically is make it intensive, and also you're going to have the ah sound at the end, which suggests second person in this case. Okay, so you got surah, and Shabbat, that is turn in, turn aside, and then you have Shabbat, that means sit down. This then is an imperative form of that verb we've seen right here, Vayoshev, and then he sat, and then here Boaz is telling the other Goel to HaGoel right here to turn in, sit down, okay, and then like I said, intensive haze or pedagogic haze at the end of these to affirm what these two actions are. Or, turn in, sit down, po right here. Po is he's pointing, probably if you're looking at Boaz, he's probably got his finger out and saying, right here, you sit down, right at this spot, probably in the center of things, not just in a corner, but you're going to sit front and center right here, and things are going to happen now. So the man might not have been thinking of anything, but there he is. So Shabbat, po, sit here. And then he gives him a title, Peloni Almoni, okay? Peloni Almoni, which just from the sound of it, this doesn't seem exactly a great title. It just sort of, hey, you so-and-so. And English translators have quite a hard time handling it because, oh, hey, you, or you so-and-so, and so forth. I was thinking of English words would sort of fit this one. Felony, fellow or phony, or Peloni. It's a Peloni, okay, fellow or phony. Almoni, alimony, or something like that. Just these aren't just the sound of the words are, oh, yeah, you know, your character, you so and so. Just not great. The Spanish has a great advantage here because the Spanish word fulano is directly derived from this thing. So Peloni, and you get in Spanish is fulano. There's the Spanish did inherit this word into their language, and so that makes it a little bit easier when we get into. I'm going to do this in Spanish in just a few minutes now, and we're going to have some fun with that with fulano. Okay, so fulano is that character. So fulano. Feloni, Almoni. Now, if you remember when Boaz was at the threshing floor and he was sleeping at the ketset at the end of the heap of grain, in the middle of the night, he shudders, shakes, and then he fell over. He fell to the side. And that's what the verb form would be, the man who falls over his feet, or falls over. Okay, so Peloni, the guy who's the fellow who isn't quite connected with things. So Peloni, the man who falls over his own feet. Peloni, Almoni, and then a nice little atna right here, which means it ends what. Like here we have a direct discourse right after here. So, and then Boaz said, and then direct discourse here, da 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 da. In English, you have quotation marks, and it's going to stop right here, and then again the action picks up again. Va yashar, va yashev. Okay, and then these then are imperatives. Okay, shura, shava, and these then are indicatives as the action. These are telling what the action should be, and these are when the action actually does take place. So, Yashar, and then he turned in, and then he sat down. So, they turned in and he sat down. The Yashev is exactly the same word as when Boaz appeared on the scene right here. Vayoshev, okay, Vayoshev, same accenting, little bit difference, the same vowel pointing, a little bit difference in the accenting here. So, and then he turned in and he sat down. This one is turn in yourself. It's a little bit more reflexive sense to it because of the surik, but this one's an active sense. So he then turned. Okay, vayashar, vayeshve, and then he sat down. So, yeah, quite an interesting passage here. It's like I said, it sets the scene. Things are going to happen. All of a sudden, the other personage is on the scene. And the way he is titled or the way he's named kind of tells us a little bit as to what this person's personality is. He's kind of person who, sort of takes each day at a time, just sort of not really thinking seriously about what's happening, and this is something at this point where Boaz has most certainly thought the whole thing through, and now when Philonia is sitting across from him, and Boaz does almost all of the talking here. He's okay, this and this and this and this and this and this, and the next 3 or 4 verses are quite an extensive encounter, quite an extensive court scene of defining what's going to happen with the property, the inheritance, the name, the people, the family, the descendants, and so forth. All these things have to be defined, and so Boaz sits down and works on that. A good teaching for us, that when it comes to sorting out our lives, there are times most certainly we have to look at things very clearly, define them, move forward, and do things according to God's will in our lives. And if there are other people who are just sort of floating around or floating along, there might also come a time when we say, hey, this is what we have to do before the Lord, and explain it very clearly, and have them on board also as to what will happen in your own life and their lives, and the way everything has to happen before the Lord. So learn from this. It's a great story. It tells us very clearly that some things in life we have to define very clearly, and do so face to face with other people, and know that we must go forward in the will of God. So God bless, and God strengthen you in this day, and until the next time.